Hey everybody, it's Grandmaster Ben Finegold here for Kid Chess. And today we have a game from a former world champion, Alexander Alekhine. He was the world champion in 1927, and he actually lost his title and then won it back. And he's the only world chess champion who actually passed away while he was world chess champion. He died, and World War II was happening, and there was no world chess champion. And then when World War II ended, they had a tournament, and Botvinnik won the tournament. He became the world champion. But for a time, there was no world chess champion. Now, this game was played near the end of Alekhine's life. He wasn't the best player in the world, but close. And this was a blindfold game where he wasn't even looking. He didn't look at the board. He just said the moves, and they told him the moves because he was so good, and his opponent was an amateur. And Alekhine had the white pieces, and he played e4 like most of us do, e5. And today, knight f3 is by far the most common move. In the 1800s, they played the King's Gambit a lot. But Alekhine played knight c3. That's called the Vienna variation. That's not very popular, but it's a fine move. Bishop to c5 is good. Bishop to c4. And here, black already made a mistake. And you're like, well, how did black make a mistake on move 3? Again, he's an amateur player, and Alekhine is playing blindfold. This guy's not a grandmaster. Now, if a grandmaster had the black pieces, he would almost certainly play knight f6. He might play knight c6, maybe. And this guy played knight to e7. That's not as good because the knight on e7 is blocking the queen, and it doesn't stop the white queen from going to g4 or h5. If black plays knight f6, white's queen isn't coming anywhere over here. Okay. Now, normally in the double king pawn opening, when white plays knight f3 really early, you can't move the queen out there because the knight's blocking the queen. But that hasn't happened yet. So he played d3. He wants to get his bishop out, but he still hasn't decided to play knight f3 yet because he might get his queen over there. You never know. Okay, and black developed his knight c6. And Alekhine decided it was time to play aggressively because his opponent's knight not on f6, where it almost always is, it's on e7. So he played queen h5. Do you see what white is threatening here? This maybe has happened in your own games. It's very unusual at the grandmaster and world championship level to play these moves. It's more common in scholastic chess. You see a queen here and a bishop here. I'm sure you've seen that before. And you're attacking the f7 pawn. Checkmate. Okay, and you don't want to get checkmated. And one thing black could do is play knight g6, blocking the queen. In fact, that is the best move. But instead, black castled. That also defends this pawn. And black really misses the fact that his knight's not on f6. That would stop almost all of white's attack. But he played knight e7 early, and as a result, he's getting punished. So one thing white could do, which is actually quite good, is play knight f3 and try to play knight g5. And then, wow, that would be really strong. The queen and the knight would threaten h7. The queen, knight, and the bishop would threaten f7. Knight f3, knight g5 is pretty difficult to meet. Instead, Alekhine played another strong move, bishop to g5, pinning the knight. You'll notice grandmasters like to pin their opponent's pieces so they can't move. Now, this is an example of a relative pin. An absolute pin means you can't move because it's illegal. A relative pin means you can't move because you don't want to. And in fact, there already is an absolute pin in this position. Do you see which one of black's pieces or pawns can't move because it's pinned? It's this one, the pawn on f7. I can't move that pawn because then I would be in check. That's an absolute pin. This knight can't move because you lose your queen. That's a relative pin. Now, you can lose your queen, but I don't recommend it. Unless you're playing me. I want to win your queen. Okay. So black played queen e8. Now he's not pinned. He broke the pin. Now the knight can move. Alekhine played knight f3. So man, Alekhine has all of his pieces out. Very good. Black, it's a lot of pieces on the first rank, right? This bishop can't even move. All right. Black played knight g6 because his knight was pinned, and now it's not pinned, so he can move it. But that move's actually a bad move. The knight was defending the center, and now it's not. The knight's over on the side. Not as good. So white played a very good move, knight to d5. Very good move. And here, black saw one threat, but didn't see the other threat. I don't really blame him. He saw the easy threat, the hard threat, the difficult threat. That was too hard for him. He's an amateur player. He saw knight takes c7. Not only does that fork the queen and rook, it's actually pretty funny. The queen's trapped. So if I play a bad move like that, and you take this pawn attacking the queen, queen has nowhere to go. No matter where you go, you get your queen captured. Now, obviously, black doesn't want to lose his queen, but white has another threat, and he didn't see the other threat. He saw knight takes c7, so played bishop b6, defending his pawn. And I've said many times in my videos, there's something more important than the queen. Do you know what it is? The king. And here, since Alekhine has all of his pieces out, he's the world champion, his opponent hasn't moved these pieces and they're trapped, and the king is sort of suffocated. Look at that king. So many pieces, he can't move anywhere. He can only go here. So Alekhine was like, my queen's here, my bishop's here, my knight's here, my bishop's here. I should be able to attack that king. And he found a fantastic sacrifice that wins the game. Very difficult to find. I don't really blame his opponent, but this is something that you should know. He played knight f6 check, forking the king and queen. Black has two legal moves. Take the knight or king h8. Plays king h8, that's checkmate. Game's over. So he has to take the knight, okay? He wants to take the knight anyway. White takes back. And now this is amazing. Even though it's black's turn to move, white is threatening queen h6, queen g7 mate, or knight g5, queen h7 mate. And black thought, and he thought, and he thought, and he said, how do I stop those mates? How do I stop checkmate? What do I do? And he couldn't find a way to stop the checkmate, so he gave up. And the chess computer that's thinking for a long time, it says, no, you're getting checkmated. You're going to get checkmated. White's either going to go here or white's going to go here. And that was an example of what happens to black's king when he doesn't play knight f6 in the opening and play knight e7. He didn't have control of f6. He didn't have defense of h7, which the knight on f6 would have. So he got in trouble all over his king. Look at all those pieces Alekhine uses to attack the king. Black's pieces hanging around over here. That's why he's an amateur, and the guy with white was the world champion, Alexander Alekhine. A fantastic game from white, and that's what we see when grandmasters play each other. It's really interesting, and sometimes when grandmasters play amateurs, the grandmasters, the world champions, just crush them. That happens. Black's king wasn't safe enough. This is Grandmaster Ben Finegold for Kid Chess. I hope you liked that checkmating attack as much as I did. Bye.